Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're unpacking a mystery that has quite literally baffled humans for thousands of years. Think about this. Have you ever set an alarm for 5 a.m., totally convinced you're gonna hit the gym, only to just absolutely smash the snooze button in pure frustration when it actually goes off? Or, maybe you've completely sworn off junk food, yet somehow you still find yourself reaching for a donut in the break room. Well, today, we're setting the stage to uncover exactly why we constantly do things we know we shouldn't. Because, let's be real, it's the ultimate human flaw. Why do we knowingly choose what is bad for us? It's such a universal question. Literally everyone, from ancient Greek philosophers to modern-day remote workers, struggles with this exact same glitch in our hardware. We usually have the knowledge. We have the intention, but man, in the heat of the moment, we just make the inferior choice. Okay, let's dive right into the concept that perfectly diagnoses this daily symptom of self-sabotage. The ancient Greeks actually had a really punchy word for this, akrasia. It literally translates to a lack of self-control or powerlessness. It's this bizarre, paradoxical state where you intentionally do something while simultaneously believing that doing something completely different would actually be way better for you. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The paradox of akrasia. 2. Anatomy of a habit. 3. Your future self. 4. The procrastination trap. And finally, 5. Hacking the fresh start. We're going to diagnose the biological mechanisms behind akrasia and then deliver some solid, science-backed cures to help you beat it.
All right, jumping right into section 1, the paradox of akrasia.
So Socrates basically argued that genuine akrasia is actually impossible. He believed in the unity of knowledge and virtue, meaning if you truly knew what was good for you, you'd just do it. Any failure was just simple ignorance. But then Aristotle stepped in with a much more relatable empirical take. He argued that akrasia is absolutely real. He pointed out that our physical desires and our emotions can easily overpower our rational thoughts. You can have the knowledge, sure, but entirely fail to activate it when a craving hits. Because let's face it, pure logic has literally never successfully defeated a chocolate-glazed donut.
Moving on to section 2, anatomy of a habit.
To see how this actually works under the hood, let's look at the Jaeger paper on a habit formation. When we learn a new behavior, we start in what's called the declarative stage. Think of the very first time you drove a car. It takes high cognitive effort, right? You're rehearsing every single step in your working memory. But through repetition, we move to the procedural stage. The knowledge literally gets compiled into an automatic script. You don't even think about driving anymore, you just do it. This automatization is simply our brain's way of saving its extremely limited cognitive capacity.
But here is where the glitch happens. Our bad habits are essentially a massive biological mismatch. Our older evolutionary brain structures, like the brainstem, are programmed to favor short-term needs, things like eating high-calorie food for immediate survival. Meanwhile, our newer brain structures, like the cerebral cortex, well, they handle long-term needs, like building an identity or keeping us healthy. So a bad habit, it's basically a turf war inside your head. Your modern cortex desperately wants long-term health, but your ancient brainstem is screaming for that immediate short-term reward.
Which brings us to section 3, your future self. This all comes down to a really fascinating concept called temporal discounting. Basically, it's our natural tendency to value immediate gains way more than future gains. It is exactly why we struggle so much to save for retirement or stick to a long-term plan. We know the future payout is larger for sure, but the psychological distance just makes it feel less valuable right now. And neuroscientists actually suspected this happens because we might view our future selves as completely different people.
To test this, researchers from Stanford put subjects in an fMRI scanner and had them judge different trait adjectives. They basically asked subjects, does this word describe you right now? Then they asked, does it describe you 10 years in the future? And, just as a control, they asked if the words described a random public figure, like Matt Damon. They were trying to map exactly how the brain conceptualizes the self across time.
And guys, here is the mind-bending plot twist. When subjects thought about their current selves, the cortical midline structures in their brains lit up. But when they thought about their future selves, activation in those exact same areas decreased, and it perfectly matched the brain scans of when they thought about a complete stranger like Matt Damon. Seriously, to your brain, making a sacrifice today physically feels like giving your hard-earned cash to some random guy on the street.
All right, section 4, the procrastination trap. I really want you to take a second and let this hard truth from the change to change source sink in. Learning has become the new procrastination.
Really reflect on that. Think about how often you read articles, watch explainers, or buy self-help books instead of actually taking action on the very thing you want to do. Constantly consuming information is honestly a modern lie we tell ourselves to avoid the friction of doing the hard work. We use research as a clever disguise for standing perfectly still. We wait around to feel good enough or prepared enough before taking a single step, and it creates this incredibly powerful illusion of progress. It completely satisfies our brain's desire to feel productive, while in reality, we're just indulging in akrasia. We're actively putting off the uncomfortable action that our rational mind knows we need to take.
Finally, Section 5, hacking the fresh start.
So, how on earth do we actually fix this? Well, psychologists have identified something called the fresh start effect. This is the act of hitting the mental reset button by using temporal landmarks. Think January 1st, a birthday, or starting a new job to fully disassociate your past failures from your current goals. It literally gives you a clean slate. But as a recent study shows, we need to be really careful here, because this reset button is definitely a double-edged sword.
The crucial point here is that a fresh start boosts you if you are failing, but it will actually ruin your momentum if you are already succeeding. Researchers looked at Major League Baseball trades, which act as a natural fresh start where a player's batting average resets to 0. Players who were performing poorly before the trade actually saw a 3.8% increase in performance after their fresh start. But players who are already successful, they saw a 5% drop in performance. So if you're on a winning streak, whatever you do, do not use a temporal landmark to reset. Just keep your momentum going.
And for those everyday bad habits, relying on sheer willpower is just not going to cut it. Because your older brain structures are way too stubborn. You absolutely must engineer your environment. First, make the bad habit impossible. Like, literally remove the junk food from your house. Second, change the stimulus. Actively avoid the environments that trigger your automatic script. And third, change the short-term outcomes. If you want to stop a bad habit, you've got to find a way to attach an immediate negative consequence to it, rather than waiting around for the long-term penalty to finally catch up with you.
We've covered a ton of ground today, from ancient Greek philosophy all the way to modern fMRI brain scans. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. The next time you find yourself endlessly researching a new project or putting off a difficult task, stop and ask yourself, are you genuinely preparing for your goals, or are you just protecting your future stranger from the hard work of today? It is time to stop researching, start acting, and finally outsmart your own biology.